Today is the 27th of March, 2012. My name is Wayne Clark. I'm with the New York State Military Museum in Saratoga Springs, New York. And today we are in Port Henry, New York. Sir, for the record, would you please state your full name and date and place of birth, please?
Yeah, Martin Francis Bezon, born on November 8th, 1921, here in Port Henry. Matter of fact, the house that used to be at the foot of this hill is where I was born.
All right. And I assume you attended school here?
I attended the Champlain Academy Parochial School, kindergarten through 8th grade. Then I went to the Port Henry High School and graduated from there in June of 1941.
Once you graduated, did you go on to college or did you go to work?
No, I went to work for Republic Steel. I had hopes of stepping out in the world, getting a better job, but the job was available. So we started working at 55 cents an hour there. But then come December 7th of the same year, 41, the black cloud of time the Japs attacked us at Pearl Harbor came about, and it changed my whole life around.
How did you hear about the attack?
I was walking up to the village and somebody stopped and says, Japanese attacked Pearl Harbor. And the full force of that didn't hit me yet, but I just got home and got the news and all that, then I realized that it won't be long before we begin in the service too now. And matter of fact, was the next day that Roosevelt declared war.
Yes.
So when I waited on a little bit, and I went to Albany right away to enlist, and I joined the Marine Corps, and they said, okay, they'll accept us. They said there's 3 of us there, but we have to get home and have my folks sign some papers.
So you were still 17?
I was too young for some reason. They anyway, come home, I found my father sick. My mother was alone. My brother's in high school here in third year high, and the doctor here says, no way are you going to service yet. He says, the responsibility of the entire family is on your shoulders. And I tried to talk to my mother and the doctor, but he said no. So that fell through, and I waited to work for Republic, and eventually I just couldn't take no more. I told my mother, I said, I gotta go in. So in December, I went back to Albany and signed up, because they dropped the requirements for the Air Force, Army Air Force cadet program, because there's no Air Force at the time. It was a part of the U.S. Army, the Signal Corps. So it was the U.S. Army Air Force.
So you signed?
And I signed up with them after they dropped the requirements to high school graduates. And went down.
And this was still 41?
This is 41. No,
Okay.
this is being 42.
Oh, 42, okay.
So they gave me the physical, and they gave me a complete test, like they did everybody, physical and whatnot. And I was told, I went down to join the Air Force, and they asked me, are you anxious to get back in? I said, yeah, I'll come back tomorrow if you just need to go home for a day. And said, all right, I'll give you some advice as a sergeant. And he says, we'll accept you as a Air Force reservist. And as soon as the cadet class opening up, they'll put a call out and they go into the reservist first. Now, if you really want to go in quick, he says, I advise you to get in on the next draft that you can and join the Army service and get in the Army. And when the call comes out for cadets, they will first take the ones that are on active duty first. So I said, oh geez, I'll do that. So as we left Plattsburgh, Albany, we didn't even come home. We stopped in Ticonderoga because that's where the draft board main office was. And we stopped up and went into Mr. McLaughlin's office. And he looked up, he said, "What can I do for you boys?" I said, "We'd like to get into the next draft, sir." He said, "Great." He said, "I need 3 more men." So he stamped 3 forms and said, "Be back here tomorrow morning."
Mm-hmm.
So next day I went back to Albany, and he said to tell them that you are a reservist in the Air Force and you want to join the Air Force. And so we got examined. They lined us up on the street, raised our right hand, take the oath of allegiance to, you know, that we'd be in the Army. And then I didn't even have a chance to ask to be assigned to the Air Force. They announced that anybody that wants to join the Air Force, just take 1 step forward. So I stepped forward. My later became my brother-in-law, Wal Zidek, but eventually he dropped out. He got a little leery of being up in the air so far. And so I went to Camp Upton at Long Island. I was there for about 3 days, and shipped out of there with, to Camp Croft, out of Spartanburg, South Carolina. And I kind of joined an infantry training. I went through the 6 weeks of basics and 7 weeks of advanced.
Mm-hmm.
And they tried to keep me in as a sharpshooter, but I said no, I'm waiting for the Air Force, so I had to wait a couple weeks and the call come out. So I was happy. We were picked out of, I think it was 8 of us, and before we left, 3 of the boys didn't pass. So 3 of us did go down to Camp Croft, from Camp Croft to Nashville, Tennessee, I mean. And we had 1 week of written and 1 week of physicals. I was accepted into the cadet program then, so there was just 2 of us left out of the 6. And even though I qualified for pilot and navigator, I was asked to be a bombardier. They needed bombardiers bad. They're building a huge armada of bombers, and they're getting ready to just bomb Germany off the face of the map.
Mm-hmm.
So I said that no, it makes no difference as long as I fly. They said, and they promised me when I put in a tour, come back, they will put me in a pilot school, and he says, you go through as an officer, be no easy and everything. Then, so we were accepted, and we went onto a train and went to heading out to Santa Ana, California, for a pre-flight. And they had our curtains closed because they said it's a too valuable a target. We're the cream of the crop that they could pick, and we weren't allowed to raise the curtains on the train until we got way out around Arizona, up and out in the desert. And so we headed north. Everybody's guessing where we're going. Then they headed east, or rather west, and I said, "Oh, we're going to Chicago or someplace." No, then we headed south. Then we headed back east. We crisscrossed the country that way until we got out to Arizona. And then the officer in charge come through. He says, "You raise the curtains now. You guys are going to Santa Ana, California for a pre-flight." And I remember there was quite a whoop, you know. They all liked that idea. So we went through the training up there, and
How long was your pre-flight training?
pre-flight, let me see, I think it was about 6 weeks.
Mm-hmm.
And I remember a sergeant come into barracks one time, and he says, "How many people never flown in a plane?" Well, gee, I was going to be embarrassed this time, be the only one standing. But there's quite a few of them stood up, so we all got to ride in a plane and get the feel of it.
Mm-hmm.
And then we went to Hollywood, Los Angeles, Long Beach. So it used to be every Friday night Used to be about 50 buses outside the gate to take the cadets wherever they wanted to go. Finished in pre-flight, we were sent to Kingman, Arizona for air-to-air gunnery. That was a 7-week course out in the desert because you had to shoot the 50 caliber machine guns and way up in the air. You imagine how far those projectiles would go. So we had different types of training on the little huge screen coming over and firing a machine gun that was fired only BBs. But they used to have thousands of BBs fall back. They would just put them back in, and you have planes going across, and you try to hit them. And then we went on a shotgun range every day. We had to fire 50 rounds of shotgun, 12-gauge shotgun at clay pigeons going through the air, some going one way, some the other. And that I loved too. Then the final week was we had a fire from a backside of a pickup truck. The guy shooting was tied down so he wouldn't fall. Then you had 2 men with you. So as you went around the track, I believe it was 30 miles an hour, they had underground cement places made, but the front secure that they couldn't get hurt or anything. And it had a small slit in it, and you look through the slit, and when you see the truck coming at hit a certain spot, you just lean back and pull a finger and it throws it out. Because you had to work that for the other crews that came on. So it was hard hitting them. You're moving and the target coming at you, going away from you, going to the right, going to the left, and your health going straight up. And if you got 6, 7 hits, you were lucky. But the last day, I don't know what happened. I couldn't miss, just couldn't miss. I know a lot of the boys from the city, they don't know how to fire a weapon, so they used to keep it loose. And when that backfired, it hit them, instead of what the rest was, it just pushes. So they were black and blue all over their arm and chest. So this one guy, Cravey, he couldn't fire anymore. He was so, his shoulder hurt so bad. And another one, Daniel D. Dunn, and he was an ex-boxer in civilian life. He said, I'm going to shoot 50 for myself, and I'm going to shoot, then you shoot your 50, and then I'll shoot Cravey's 50, then shoot my 50 again. So he was going to shoot 100 rounds. So you're not supposed to do that. So I fired mine, and I couldn't believe it. I got, I think it was 21 out of 25. And so he shot twice for Cravey, and somebody out with a megaphone there out in the middle of the field hollered truck number so put the shotgun up your shoulder. So he asked me to fire the rest of Cravey's. So I fired 21 shots for Cravey, and we got, I think it was 18. I said, don't tell him 18. I said, our truck can't be that hot, He hollered Cravey, but at the end of the run, you made 2 runs, holler Cravey or Bezon and give the number of hits. So then Danny Dunn there, he said, well, you fire my 50. So I ran, shot his 50, and I went back, shot my 50, then I shot the 50 all together. So I got a lot of shooting that day. But, oh, my scores are all high, very high. And from there, we got 2 with the gunnery. We passed, got our certificate as air-to-air gunners. And we were given a 7-day furlough. And we just didn't have enough time to go from Kingman to New York City and then come up to here. You'd never make it. And so we went to Los Angeles and Hollywood, spent a week there, then we headed down to Albuquerque, New Mexico. We got our advanced bombardiering course. There we learned all about the northern bomb site and everything about it, and in and out, and made our practice runs. Flew AT-8s on a bombing run and had a close call there. After I got through and everything went good, had a little time on our hands. The pilots like to fly up through the canyons, and one time we see one plane coming out and we're going in, and they had enough room, but on the plane you don't know. So as they ready to pass, they both flipped over and they went by. So it turned out good, no problem. And we did have one man killed, one of our cadets were killed on that training, and a couple had to bail out. So outside everything went good.
Mm-hmm.
And we enjoyed our weekends in Albuquerque. And Sunday we had to come back because every Sunday they had a huge parade. Everybody on that base had to be in a parade, even the KPs and no matter who it is. So if you were on toward the tail end of the parade, you had to stand out there for a few hours, just standing there waiting for your turn to go. It took that long, at least 2 hours before the last few to get to marching. And whoever picked the best would get an afternoon off and could go to town at 12 noon instead of next Friday, instead of 5 o'clock.
Mm-hmm.
So I guess Friday we got one day to come in. We were snapping like the one there. We felt we were going to make it. We come out there and everything was good. And then we give eyes right, and we did. This little Italian guy that had a little bit too much to drink the night before, he snapped his hat, flew off, and he stooped and picked it up. So they gave us a good marking, but it kicked us out of first place.
Yeah.
But we graduated. We graduated as a second lieutenant,
Mm-hmm.
and it was January of '44. And we were sent to a place called Boca Raton. No, not that was Boca Raton, down to Drew Field in Florida. It was on the east coast of Florida, near Tampa. Matter of fact, we slept on the spring training grounds for the Cincinnati Reds. I was on second base where I had our tent picked. And we flew missions. There was a bunch of Bombardiers came in, a bunch of navigators, a bunch of pilots,
Mm-hmm.
and they formed crews. And that was going to be our crew that we're going to combat with. So I ended up with Lieutenant Tuttle and Lieutenant Birch as pilot, co-pilot. And we had a good crew. It was Denners, Zelensky, and Donovan, and we were really like a family. We blended together good.
Mm-hmm.
But one day I was on a mission. For about the first mission I had to go on, they give you missions. You had to complete so many different types of missions. Drop, I think it was 200 bombs. So the first mission, we didn't have a navigator. The first mission I looked on the board, we had a navigational mission that night. We're on a night when we take off at midnight. And I went back to the pilot. I said, Bob, I think we got a navigator. He said, how come? He says, we're on a navigation mission. So we went up to the instructor there and says, who's our navigator? He said, what crew? I said, 92. He said, you don't have a navigator. He says, well, we got a navigation mission. I said, where's your bombardier? I said, I am. He said, you better know what navigation you learned because you're the navigator. I said, oh boy. So we had to fly from Tampa over to just below Miami, I'd say 20 miles. You can see it all lit up. And
Mm-hmm.
out in the middle of the ocean out there, 50 miles or so, pretty well out where the land disappeared. And then we had to head north in pitch darkness and to a point where you turn a little bit north-south, northeast, and headed down toward the Alabama area, swamplands down through there, and Florida, and then we had to go out to the Gulf of Mexico, and from there we turned into our home base, And where we were stationed, there's St. Petersburg was not too far away, and had a long bridge going across the water to St. Petersburg. I think it was Gandhi Bridge. And way off in the distance, as dawn was breaking, you could see them string of lights. So Tuttle said, "Marty, what's them lights ahead?" I said, "Boy, if that's not Gandhi Bridge, we're lost." So we landed, right on the course we landed, and I felt pretty good since the first mission, and we did that good on it.
Mm-hmm.
So, but I had trouble with my, they had B-17 that were flying, dropping bombs. No matter what I did, I followed all procedures and did everything we're supposed to do, but go to make the bomb run, the bombs wouldn't leave. And I think about 3 missions we went it wasted, and we never get the bombs off. So I remember the co-pilot was getting a little grumpy about it, and they were short of instructors, and we were one of the few crews that never had an instructor. The rest was, we take them out of AT-6 to a big B-15. Was quite a difference. We finally give us this one plane. We went up night bombing. We had to fly to Orlando, Florida, and the targets were all around Orlando. And my job was, as soon as I reached the area, call the station, we know how to do that, and say, Bezon, ask permission for a bomb a target. So you couldn't go on a target till they gave you permission to tell you which one,
Mm-hmm.
and to tell you what elevation, so you wouldn't be on the same elevation as some other plane. So the targets would, the planes going around the target would be pretty close to each other at times. So I called and called and called, couldn't get nothing. So I called up the pilot. I said, "I don't know if they're reaching me, and I don't realize it. I don't know if they're reaching me, they're answering, and we can't get them." But I said, "I can't make contact." So the pilot said, "I'll try." He tried to redo it. He couldn't do nothing, and the co-pilot did. In the meantime, I'm over my bomb site, and everyone's trying to look up. Well, then you see the lights of the down below there, over here, or maybe up here, so you know the plane's twisting around, and you don't realize it because they're not sharp turns. So there's one time the pilot happened to go down, he found a wire, see if it was a broken wire or something, and I didn't realize that, and I looked ahead of me, it's a few miles, but I see the lights, and when I looked up, I said, "Holy gee, where the heck am I now, what position?" And I realized, I said, "The ground below me, I see the lights there, that's a plane coming." And he kept coming head on, and as all pilots know, standard operational procedure, they call it SOP, is no matter how distant, even at 10 miles away, you're going to make a left dive and turn, both of you. So you go away from each other.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm waiting for him to make the turn, and look, he's getting up closer. So, "Hey," I'm looking, I said, "Oh, can't make it now." So I grabbed my parachute, put it on, which is foolish, because if they're going to hit, we're not going to have no time for parachute. And in the meantime, somebody woke up and they did the dive, but they didn't flare off to the left. So here we're coming right together, and it was close.
Mm.
So last minute pilot was underneath, and he's wondering why he bumped his head, so he stood up to see the plane, and he revved it right up, and whoever was in the other plane did the same thing. I could see that plane, so it's closer than that wall. It just went belly to belly. So it shook us up, because just a matter of another 30 seconds we'd have been killed. So he landed, and the instructor come with the Jeep, come out, "What's the trouble?" We told him, "Get in the Jeep." He said, "You get another plane, you get back up." And he said, "Don't land for 6 hours." So we flew up with another load, and this time, gee, the plane worked good. So I dropped the bombs quick, 20 runs. So I asked the pilot, "Where in, see, can we go get loaded up with 20 more?" So, like I say, we're 2 missions behind already. So we landed again, they loaded up quick, and so I dropped 40 bomb loads that day. And from then on, I had no problem. So we graduated from there, and we were ready to go overseas. go up to Langley Field, and they took me off the crew. And I didn't know why. They said, you'll be notified. But then I noticed all of my buddies that were in Bombadier and from several of the crews. So there's about 10 of us knew each other. We were all taken out off. And the rest of our crews left. So we were taken into a church, and they used that for halls. All the officers had to be there. And it says they're here for a 4-week course and in radar. And he says you're going to have 2 weeks vacation, furlough. He says in a 4-week course. So I figured 6 weeks, but it wasn't so. He said, I'm going to call the names of the guys first. I'm going to start school. And then I'll name the name of the guys I'm going to go on furlough for 2 weeks. And so I wasn't in either group. So after I got through, I walked up toward the front of the church. I asked the sergeant, I said, you didn't read my name. He said, what is your name? So I told him, Lieutenant Bezon. Oh yeah, you're going overseas right away. So I was happy as heck.
Mm-hmm.
And then with me was my buddy Broadway. Him and I went through all the way. And he said, I told Broadway, they didn't call my name. He said, they didn't mind either. Well, all our crews, he said, where's got a cruise? He said, they're up Langley Field waiting for you. So we left. We didn't get into the training program there. We got to Langley Field, and we're going to fly the B-17 over in a few days. They gave us a brand new B-17. Went out that night, partied up pretty good shape. And so we had to take the plane for a 1,000-mile hike, hop. And they named 3 places, one west, one down toward the south, and the other one up here, Burlington, Vermont, and which is going right by here. So I asked the pilot if nobody has any choice. I'd like to make one. Sure, so he asked everybody if somebody wanted to go some other way. I wouldn't have said anything. So I said, Burlington, I said, how about going to Burlington? Burlington will be. So geez, I called up my mother on the phone and told her that I'm going to be flying over Port Henry, and that we got permission to drop a little bit low. He said we could get down to 10,000 feet, and I said I'll be in a little window in the middle of the plane, in the waist, and I'll be waving a white flag. So, and I had made a parachute out of some kind of a sook or something I found there, and I put a little gift from my mother on there, and I figured the wind, I knew where I had to drop it. So I said, I'll drop something there from the airplane. It should be a little white chute on it. So we coming up, and we flew across the bridge, and made a few circles. We dropped down to about 2,000 feet. Imagine the B-17 over the village of Port Henry at 2,000 feet. So I see my mother, she's shading her eyes, looking up, waving, I'm waving back, and then I threw the thing out and I see she got it. So that was the last I see my mother for quite a while. Then we flew around the bridge once more. I said, I tried to get the pilot to go underneath the bridge. He said, geez, Marty, we won't fit. I sure you fit. But we thought second thoughts and thought we better not. So we went to Burlington and went back. Everything was good. Everybody checked his position, make sure nothing was wrong with it. That's the reason for the test hop. So next day we took off, went to Bangor, Maine. And we still didn't have a navigator. I was doing a navigation with my radar set.
Mm-hmm.
And got to Bangor, Maine, and they stayed overnight, loaded up our plane with Bombay full of mail for the GIs overseas. And we took off the next day to Labrador, and Goose Bay, Labrador. And we had a near mishap there. They gave us a navigator He'd never flown with it before. And my orders were to not to use radar and to help the navigator. So started, got up to elevation, all that, headed down across the ocean, and Canada, all them cut way in, so you're going across the ocean quite a long time with no landfall seen. So I went up past the navigator. I won't mention his name, but I said, "What do you want me to help you to do here?" "Never mind, you're a bombardier." He said, "I don't need no help." And I said, "Okay, I'll be down in the radio room." So I waited there, but I went back up. "You sure you don't need help?" "Nope, I don't need help." So after I got to thinking about it, I said, "We've been flying quite a while. We should have seen land." So I told the pilot, I said, rather Bill Tuttle, I said, "Bill," I said, "we should be seeing land somewhere." I said, "We're got quite a ways to go from land yet." He says, "Lower the radar set." So I had to get the enlistment to lower my scope. At the bottom of the ship, you have this scope hangs way down, and inside of it, it's a scope enclosed in this cylinder lower down. And I warmed up my radar set. It takes 5 minutes for the first switch that we throw on, and wait 5 more minutes before you throw the primary in. And I get a picture of it after that. And the pictures are like this here. If you see land, you see all that light.
Mm-hmm.
And water, you see black. Because when I send the pulse out, it hits water, it's going to, 90 degrees is going to go out. None of that comes back to me. That's why that's all these black.
Mm-hmm.
And you go over the cities and grounds and terrain, all that. A lot of them come back to you, and the rest go off. So you get you can see a well-lit areas.
Mm-hmm.
And when you hit a city, about 75% or better of them come back at you. So the city is much brighter. And it's a great navigation tool. We never got lost. And so he said, "Lower that down." So they lowered it down. So by the time they got it down, everything, about 15 minutes later, I turned the set up. And you have graduations on your picture that shows you can make these 10 miles, you can make them 50 miles, 100, 150, 200. So I put it on 50 miles each, and I looked out 200 feet, 200 miles of knots, and nothing in sight but water. So finally went up to 500, nothing, went up to 600, and all I see is just a boat way out there about 550 feet away from us, miles, I mean. And we were over 600 miles away from shore, and we've been flying too long. So I went back up to the pilot. I says, "Something wrong. I can't get him get landfall." So he said, "Go up there and I'll call him on the speaker to let you look at what he's doing." So I went up. In the meantime, the Air Force got a new type of compass flying over here. There's so much ore in these mines up here in the hills, rather.
Mm-hmm.
Their compass off 15, 16 degrees. If you don't realize it, you get lost flying around here, or any place in the world. It's all these little deviation, right?
Mm-hmm.
Plus or minus.
Yep.
And up here it was high. I think it was about 17 degrees off. And the new compass we got, it got a little furrow nut on the side and a little window on the inside thing, and you could preset the variation. So then you read true heading. If you didn't use that, well, on your log, you got the first thing is our heading, and observing that heading. Then the next column down is deviation,
Mm-hmm.
and you will subtract it or add it onto it, and that's your true heading. And if you don't use that, you can see how far off you're going. So I looked down and I said, "Well, he's got the fluxscape compass, good." I looked at it, I said, "Let me see your log." So I looked over there and I said, "What are you doing?" I said, "What's the matter?" I said, "What's your first column?" I said, "My heading." "What's the second column?" "My deviation." I said, "What do you put it in the compass for?" "You got it both places. You're going off 16 degrees since we left Bangor, or rather Goose Bay." And we were way off course.
Jeez.
I says, "I'm going to tell the pilot to take it what was that, took it 180, 245, something like that, 270. I'm going to tell the pilot, take it 270, get another heading. So I went up and told pilot, take it 270 and start praying. And we made it. The land come in, and we come around the target, landed, and we did, the engines all conked out after we stopped, and we couldn't even taxi to our revetment. One, matter of fact, not even a minute we'd have been in the ocean just before landing. We'd all died. So they got rid of him pretty quick when they got overseas. So we were heading to,
Now, whereabouts did you land?
well, we were heading from Goose Bay to Reykjavik up in Iceland.
Mm-hmm.
And we landed there, and then we had something wrong with one of the engines. So we stayed there 2-3 days. And from there we took off and headed down to England, landed there, and they took me off the crew again. And I was sent to a radar, 1 month English radar school to learn their type of navigation and everything. And then we were assigned to the 466 bomb crew. My buddy Broadway and I are still together.
And that was part of the 8th Air Force.
We were in the 8th Air Force then. So I went up to headquarters the next day after I got settled down and asked him if I could get on the plane, start flying my mission as quick as possible. He says, I'm a qualified navigator, I'm a qualified bombardier, I'm a qualified air-to-air gunner. And I says, I sure like to start them up, I just can't do it. He says, there's too much money spent on you guys. There was a terrific lot of expense to train one of us. He said, you were anxious to start your mission? I said, yes, I am. He said, next group 2 was 467th. Got a crew waiting for a radar man. He says, you want to transfer? I said, yes, I do. So that's the first time Broadway and I split. So I went over to 467, got on with Bill Chapman, his crew, and through my missions with Chapman, and we got flew together until we got our 18th mission. We got shot. 19th mission. We got shot down.
Now, was your plane named at all?
No, we were in. See what they do? Get these planes away for the radar man. Their planes are prove themselves that they're a little superior to the rest of them, and they pick them out for lead planes, be the first or second plane. Which both are equipped identically alike. In case this one gets knocked out, this can take his place. So they were all lead crews, and all lead crews were in the 791st Squadron of the 467 bomb group, and that's where I went right into the 467 bomb group as a lead in a lead plane. So met the crew and all that. Went on our started our missions, and the navigation of these. I was really happy with the navigation. Because about that radar, you can navigate, and you can see little spaces sometimes on the map. It just had a small channel go between 2 cities, and on the way to a target, you pass pretty close to different cities, you know, or towns, and they got they have flag guns around a lot of them, and they know the distance those flag can reach us at the elevation we're flying. So they can only reach so far. If you get closer to them, they're going to reach you. So if you get hit right between those areas, it's marked with the red around the cities, you're okay. There's one that was very narrow, and I always like to go through there because I hit that dead center.
Now, did you normally take flak on most of your missions?
Most of them you get flak, some more intense than others. A couple times we got fighters come in, but the colonel of the CEO of our group, Colonel Showers, he was a sticker on tight formations. And the tighter the formation is, the less the fighters bother you, because you got too much concentrated firepower. So we weren't attacked as bad as the other groups flying with us. But once in a while they come over, and they didn't bother us that too often much. And but outside that, like Dresden, and Nuremberg and places like that. They had a lot of flak.
Now, what were you bombing primarily? Were they factories or?
We had different phases. First of all, it might be oil.
Mm-hmm.
Then we'd be only on oil a target. Next be industrial. We'd bomb only the industrial. So it was, I think it's 3 different phases we went through. And later on, there's certainly just a pinpoint bombing, like a bridge going over across some waterway, and you kept sending their squadrons into that till they finally blew it up.
Mm-hmm.
So we never, the English wanted us to bomb, just kill people, because it was an agreement, German agreement and Allied, that they would not bomb, just bomb a city, drop bombs to kill people. That'd only be targets that meant something for the war.
Mm-hmm.
But then the Germans turned around, got the buzz bomb, and then you start sending them over. It was a potless thing. What all it was a great big bomb with wings, and it had a motor on it. And I remember the first day I got to England, I was standing up in the line to go into the movie house. And I heard this buzz. So everybody said buzz bomb coming. I didn't realize then we were the closest air base to the, where they launched these buzz bombs, and every buzz bomb went over our base. So instead of it keep going, don't worry about it.
Mm-hmm.
But if it stops, it sputters and stops. Sometimes he said they keep floating. I'd rather going through the air yet. Other times they turn around and come right down.
Mm-hmm.
So when it stops, head for the bomb shelter. So this one's going over there, they start sputtering. So then it stopped, and everybody had to ran in. Then somebody looked up and said, we're okay. Then we got out and watched it going down. We got down behind the hill, and all of a sudden you could see the concussion coming before you felt it.
Mm-hmm.
So, but one night Jesus, they're sending a lot of buzz bombs, and it rained, and it was muddy outside. They had a plank where to walk on. Somebody said buzz bombs, so we all run out in our pajamas and jumped the shelter, went over, come back. And then we weren't sleeping 15, 16 minutes. Another buzz bomb, and another one. About the 4th one, I said, the heck with them. I slept through the rest of the night, and they kept coming up every night. So I just took a chance and won't let it land.
Now, what kind of quarters did you have? Were you in Quonset huts or tents?
Quonset hut, very cold huts,
Mm-hmm.
just the metal inside and outside, just the metal covering on it.
Now, when did you arrive in England?
Oh, that must have been about July
Of 44?
44. So, the huts had one stove in the middle,
Mm-hmm.
and they give you a quota of just so much coal. You can burn it up in a day, day and a half, but you're going to be cold unless you can find wood. I mean, where are you going to find wood in England? So you had to kind of conserve it. And toward the evening before you go to bed, just warm it up a little bit, but it was cold in them barracks.
Mm-hmm.
So somebody come up with the idea of taking the oil, that they change oil on the engines, and all these barrels and barrels of it available. And he took a certain amount of oil and just mixed a certain mixture of high octane gasoline and stirred it all up. And he put a can up on near the roof, near the top of the roof there, and piped it into the stove. And oh, geez, that was good. We rigged one up, and we had a red stove all day, 24 hours a day.
Mm-hmm.
And somebody put too much octane in one of them and blew up, so they made us take them all down.
Oh, jeez. How were you treated by the English people?
Oh, not bad. You get in the bar room, of course, and drinking, you get an argument. Like, English says, only trouble is you Yankees. I said, what's that? He says, you're oversexed, overpaid, and over here. So, but no, I never got in trouble with English, never.
Mm-hmm.
And after the war was over, everybody was celebrating, but they restricted us to the base, where they wouldn't let us go out.
Mm-hmm.
But we all had 45 revolvers and went around shooting the smokestacks off the buildings and everything else, so they thought they better let us go in and protect ourselves. So we went next down in Norwich. We were just stationed outside Norwich, all the bases of the 2nd Division.
Mhm.
So used to meet my buddy there every time I went into town. We used to go to the same pub and get on the end there and have a few drinks with English. But that was, I don't think I ever got into trouble with anybody. Had an argument with one of the guys in our barracks, but we settled it all up. And that's the way we lived.
Mhm. And what about unit losses?
The one?
What about your unit, the losses?
Oh, I have a book here someplace. If I find it, I'll mail it to you. It tells all about the history of the 467th.
Mm-hmm.
And maybe you can leave it right there. And it's around here somewhere. I'll have her send it to you.
Okay.
And it tells you losses and all that. People killed, how many wounded, how many missions flew, and gives you the whole detail in there.
Now, what was the obviously the worst mission you were on was the mission you were shot down.
Dresden was a bad one too.
You want to tell us about Dresden?
Well, what happened there? We got hit bad, and it was one of our early things. And I love the crew I was on. They're great. Chapman, Wallace, their school, Van Tress, and my other navigator. We had 2 navigators on a lead ship. Our DR navigator, what they call it, Dead Reckoning, and myself, radar.
Mm-hmm.
Because you're leading. One time we led 300 planes. We're in the front, and they got to go where you go. So you have 2 DR and thing, and we're on the flight deck. The flight deck here, the pilot's over here, and the DR was sitting right next to him, back to back. And the co-pilot's here, and I'm just cutting behind the co-pilot. So we had signals, and we said, okay, 5 minutes, take a fix. So check my watch quick and get it fixed, and you get it fixed with the radio, and I get it fixed with radar, repair, and then he'd give me the okay.
Mm-hmm.
He never give me a sign that we're off. It was always an okay sign.
Now, as a radar man, you were known as a Mickey man.
Mickey operator, H2X operator.
Where did they get that name Mickey from? I've heard it before.
I don't know. They usually call us a Mickey,
Mm-hmm.
or radar operator, or H2X operator. That's some number of the set we worked. Or they used to call us Pathfinders. So, but I remember when we first were taking radar, they told us, we ever see the word radar in town, we'll face a court-martial. Very secretive. We had one classroom here, you had to go to an MP.
Mm-hmm.
You want to go from this classroom to the other one. Both MP just across the hall. Another MP checking in. So it's very close. Dresden, I was talking that we had a heavy flak, and we got hit, but not bad, and we made it through. I think someplace here she has a picture of it. It might be in one of these books. And anyway, we got a hit the size of a little bit bigger than a softball. I'd say about a 6-inch piece of the shrapnel come up and went off to the roof of our plane, about the middle of the plane. There's a few small holes, but thank God nobody was hurt.
Mm-hmm.
And coming back, we hit into a front. We're advised to look out for that front, but where they told us it's going to be was way off. And I used to check with my radar continuously where I can take a fix on it.
Mm-hmm.
And I realized something was wrong, so I hurried it up and got a new wind. And I found out we were being blown way the heck off course. So I went up to the RP and got onto rally point, means that we had to meet there, then head home. I called up the pilot, I said, something wrong, we got about 15 miles off course. I said, we got a new heading we should take. I said, we hit the front of where we briefed on, but it's a lot earlier before. And we were flying deputy lead. And it was a wing lead, and everybody wants the credit for the big leads because you get promotions that way, a wing, division. And he evidently called up and nothing was said. And we had a pilot, co-pilot, and a command pilot. Command pilot is there to make sure everything's running, good. He's in charge of it, really.
Mm-hmm.
And I never got no response, and I called up again, Mickey the pilot. He said, go ahead, Marty. I said, we're 25 miles off course. Something better be done. And I marked the heading we're going. We're heading right for the Ruhr Valley. And that's all industrial place. There must be 1,000 anti-aircraft guns around there. They're heavily defended. They make the steel and everything else down there. So, he didn't say anything. I call up again, Mickey the pilot. Chappie, I said, we got to get something done. I said, we're 35 miles off course, and we're heading to an area that we will be getting flak soon, and we are going to lose several planes. There's going to be 40, 50 men killed, guaranteed. And he says, well, I checked everybody, and everybody said we're on course, except one guy said we're 15. And all the other planes said we're on course, and we weren't. We're 35 miles now, is right. And we got down there, and this, when I said that we're going to be getting flak soon, the guys in the way said it's already popping out ahead of you, it's waiting for us. And they'd have shot many of our planes down.
Mm-hmm.
So the front plane in front of us said, okay, since you know where we are, take over. So we swung up the lead, and I said, take it north quick, get the heck out of there. So I headed north and into our old, hit our own old track that was on the map to follow home, and got home, cut to Port Henry, went across went across the French coast, across the channel, then you can see the white cliffs of Dover coming up,
Mm-hmm.
then you know you're home. So then I finally relaxed a little bit. But I had a meeting, and they had all the officers of the base. And I said, gee, they're going to probably pat me on the back for doing a good job, Boy, they said they got up there, they were going to crucify me. They were going to take my wings off me and wouldn't let me fly. I said, what's the matter, you're sleeping like that? You get that far off course? And, well, I had a good crew, and I didn't want to lose them. So I said, I didn't want to tell them I gave the course several times the pilot, and I didn't want to tell them that all the other planes that were on course. I didn't want to tell them that when I give the first course correction on the bomb, because on the bomb run, that's when we first made a big boo-boo, I give an 8-degree correction when we turned from Raleigh Point heading for the target. And that 8 degrees would have been okay. But it's like, it's like you turn here and the target's up here. Or I come over here, so I came to 8 degrees. I was supposed to be heading here, then Bombadier called up, he says, I don't want that. He says, I make a visual bomb run. But I'm going to kill the course for him. So we got a little bit more, and 2 minutes later, I give him a 10 degrees, and he still wouldn't take it, because Bombadier says, no, it's a visual bomb run. So I wouldn't have to make the bomb run, he's going to make it visually.
Mm-hmm.
I said, well, I can kill your course for you, never mind. So what happened, we kept going way off course. Instead of coming up, we were instead of doing about a whole, say, 45-degree course to the target, we got over so far when the Bombardier found out where he was, he had to almost turn it north. So what happened, these others, planes came on and they went underneath us. And I used to like to look out the bomb bays to see the bomb drop. So I looked out when the radar dropped, and I looked at the plane right below us. So I hollered, don't drop the bombs. And it's too late, they went. And the one bomb went between the wing and the fuselage. Oh, I almost killed 10 men. And I was blamed for it. For not, they asked me if they were sleeping up there.
Did they have to bail out, or did they make it home like that?
No, nobody hit, the plane didn't get hit.
Oh, okay.
But I said some close. It was the pilot's fault, it was a command pilot's fault, really. He should have told the chaplain to put that, because by the time the Bombardier gets a target in sight, it's got to be about a 70-degree angle.
Mm-hmm.
And hell, we are 40 miles away from there yet. And I could kill that course dead. You don't have to correct it more than 1 or 2 degrees with the bomb sight after. And they didn't do it. So I didn't want to say what I did. And I thought one of them would stand up and speak for me, you know. Either the pilot, the command pilot, or any member of the crew, they heard it all.
Mm-hmm.
And the Bombardier, I suppose they were scared that I might say something. I didn't want to say something. So they said, one more move like that, he said, you're off your crew. So I went back to barracks. I felt bad, real bad, because I could have blown the whistle, and
Mm-hmm.
I didn't want to get off that crew. I took my shoes off, went to bed with my clothes on, and covered my head, and I cried like a baby. And then I heard my pilot and Sydney, Captain Sydney, come in, and Sydney was in charge of all radar men. And he says, Chappie, I don't know what happened up there, but I know this man wasn't to blame. He said, he's the only one that comes to this shack after every mission to find out if he could have done better what the radar said. If anything's wrong, he wants to find out. He's the only guy that ever come up there. And I said, he's very interested in this bombing, I said, and he was good. So I said, it's not his fault, I know it. Chapman said, no, it wasn't. He says, my fault as well as Bombadier. And so woke up in the morning and everything's okay. So I went up to see the commanding officer and asked him if I could have a meeting with our crew. Like to talk to the crew about my position and what I'm there for. And he gave me permission. So I went up there and we had the meeting there, and I told the guys what I could do. I said I could navigate when all other systems are blacked out by the Germans. I said they cannot, no way block off my signals. And I said I got a perfect navigational equipment. And I said I've never been lost, I don't intend to be lost. I said, and I went up to Irkutsk, and if you ever counteract the correction I give in Malice, is I'm going to punch you right in the head, and there'll be another hole in this plane. But don't you ever do that. I said, it's your fault. And I know it. So everything was forgotten.
Mm-hmm.
We had a great crew, great missions after that. But when I give corrections then, they took them.
Now, do you want to tell us about that last mission?
Okay, it was December 18th, I think it was. I believe it was. Yeah, it was December 18th on a Sunday. Seems like Sundays was our bad mission. And to give fresh eggs, I knew it was going to be a rough one. For being a rough mission, you usually get powdered eggs
Mm-hmm.
for breakfast. And he got up, it was a nice day, went outside, there was a Catholic priest there. He's there at every briefing, not at the briefing, but outside waiting for the briefing out. Come out, so a lot of us Catholic boys kneeled down in cement and received a communion, and he gave us the blessing. And they jumped on the wagon, went out to their plane. A couple of guys, they kind of, you can almost think they knew this was going to be a bad one. The look on their faces. Going over, it was good, navigation was super, and we were leading a squadron that time, and we were coming up on the bomb run. Had a little plane attacked us for a while, and flak started greeting us, and up ahead we could see the sky was black with flak, and you can't serve, you got to go right through it.
Mm-hmm.
And we got into it, and had my bomb bay doors open. I was ready to turn over to watch the bombs go off, and you get that explosion. It seemed to, I thought it was inside the plane, it was so loud, but directly underneath the plane we got a direct hit. And we had fires in the bomb bays, and up in where the pilot was, some kind of white metal, hot, landed, and the pilot co-pilot stamped on it, and it burned right down through the ship. You could look right at the hole. And the pilot and co-pilot got bucket seats made out of heavy steel. The rest of us got safety vests, sometimes to stop the
Mhm.
the bullets, you know, or flak, I mean. And I noticed the fire on the flight where we were, just around me, I could feel the fire in my legs, and I turned around, grabbed the, we went into the dive, of course, and it was hard to maneuver because that forced you down on the ground. Finally got the thing and stood up, and I started putting the fire out.
Fire extinguisher?
Yeah, I pretty well got it pretty well out. It's a little bit more than look around, see what's the matter. I don't see my navigator help me, Van Trest. And look, he's all there laid down, his eyes very gray, and his brains hanging down the side of his head. And they look, all I can think of, they look like frog eggs. And it's, geez, I said, I went over there and picked up the brains in my hand. They were warm yet. I didn't know what to do with them. Hell, he's dead. So I spread some sulfur on it and went up to pot it. The Arcus was on the bomb base just below me where I could tap him on the head. And I looked there down and he was gone. I could see a piece of his clothes and stuff on the side of the plane, and he was shot off, but when he hit, he just dropped out of the plane without a parachute. And nose was burning pretty good. They got that fire out, and the wind comes through the big hole up in the nose too. Helped put that fire out. And the waist wasn't hurt too much. Nobody got hurt back there. And
Okay, I'm going to stop you right here. I have to switch tapes.
all right.
Okay, you mentioned the navigator was dead and the fellow was blown out of the side of the
Right.
aircraft.
And the rest was, the pilot had the backside, he was worked on by the Russians. The thing hit the steel seat he was sitting in so hard, it sent little shivers out of it into his backside, but nothing serious at all. And we were going into a dive, and to this day I don't know how we could have managed to pull out of a dive, because number one and number two engines were shot out altogether.
Mm-hmm.
And number three was only pulling half power, and he was running it around 20. And number four is the only good engine, he was pushing it to the limit, 62, 63. If we had to fly another hour, we'd have had to blown up that engine.
Mm-hmm.
And we're carrying a full load of bombs yet, because it tangled up the releases and everything so bad that they asked me to go back in the waist in the bomb base. So I took my parachute off, because it's only a 6-inch walk, and there's nothing underneath me but a 6-inch catwalk. And I had a big screwdriver, and I put all the weight I dared put on it, tried them to try to open up them releases to drop the bombs.
Mm-hmm.
And I unhooked the arming wire, because the arming wire was from the nose of the plane up through the little place we hook on and down into the point where it's going to, well, how would you call it? The arming pin. That when the bomb hits with the nose, the arming pin drives in and they made the explosion. So I just hooked that wire so they wouldn't go off when they dropped. And I fixed the detonation and all that so they wouldn't explode. Shut a cotter key in it so no way could slip forward. So when the plane did land, none of the bombs exploded. So they were able to find the navigator.
Mm-hmm.
He was burnt up, but they found it. It was all in one piece.
So you all bailed,
And
the rest of you bailed out.
Well, we're going to dive, but somehow, with an engine and a half, I don't know how they did it. But there must have been terrific pressure. They pulled it out of the dive, and we were over the middle of Berlin. And remember when you pull out of the dive, I put my parachute on, and of course, the navigator, his parachute was okay. Mine had a hole in it. It was just burnt a little bit, but I know I couldn't use it. So I took his, and I remember saying, "Thanks, Val." van. I said, so I had chest break. You just snap off. You got big eyes on your chest, and hook into it, and then your chest is right in front of you.
Mm-hmm.
Or the pilot, co-pilot had backpacks. So I'm up talking to the navigator and the Bombadier. I was kneeling right between them, and I told my pilot that Van is gone and George Fuller's gone. I contacted the Waste. They said they're giving you okay. I said the Waste is all okay. So I said we got two killed in action, and he said okay. And I told him where you were. So I said I give him a heading to Poland. I said take it 90 degrees for the time being. And I went and set up and used my drift meter and all that. I gave him a corrected heading more south, because that's where the closest the Germans, Russians were to us, to the German boundary line, or rather the front. And we're heading there. The plane was staying level, but he couldn't keep the altitude. We kept losing altitude.
Mm-hmm.
So it was a matter of time we had to bail out, and no way we could land it because everything was shot up around the flight deck and controls and everything. But how he kept it level, I don't know. So we got over and we started getting strafed by a German plane. And he had one landing gear down, we remember, and the other one was up. And he made a pass and turned around to get another pass at us, and there were 3 Russian yaks come in. He flew away, and they circled us a couple times, and they come in and start strafing us and knock us down.
They couldn't tell that you were an American?
Well, they couldn't tell the plane level. The emblem was American emblem on it. But I think, you know, after years went by, I think they must have seen the bomb bay doors open and they've seen bombs in it. So they probably just figured maybe we're on the bombing mission. That's one thing I could see. But however, that day while we were bombing Berlin, the 3 American ships were knocked down by Russians. So they did every once in a while. Of course, a couple of Americans knocked down a couple of theirs too.
Mm-hmm.
But they started strafing us, and Chapman says, asked me to give the Waste signal to bail, and because the radio system between the Waste and the flight deck was out. So I had some object there, and he used it at the door, so they opened up the door going into the bomb base, or rather the Waste, and I part of my parachute, and I said, go, so that he's not okay. So got ready and went over there and touched my navigator again. I went out and I sat down on the bomb bay, climbed down into the bomb bay, sat on the walkway there, that 6-inch beam, and sat my feet dangling out. Never jumped out of a plane like before. And waited for the co-pilot to come close to me, then that way we'd be close enough that we find each other quick. So actually it's about the navigator, the waist gunner, Twyford, jumped just as Wally stepped down, and I bailed out, put my head between my legs and rolled out, and fell far enough that I'd make sure I wouldn't be around the plane. And I pulled the whipcord, and nothing happened, and I started clawing at the thing, and then finally it popped open. There's an auxiliary parachute in there. It's under screen tension, spring tension, and that popped a little parachute out. And with that, we'll start pulling the main parachute out. And that's the way we got the parachute to come out of the thing. So that auxiliary parachute that is fitted into your main chute, it pops out first and drags the main chute out. And I remember that an awful jar the first time it stopped us, then a couple of smaller ones, and then you swear you're floating that way instead of floating down. You were going down all right. And as I was going down, I see the 3 planes come down. One picked on the pilot. One hit me and didn't hit me, but attacked me while I was falling, and one on the waist gunner.
Now, did you have a ball turret gunner?
No, that's where my radar equipment was put in.
Oh, okay.
That front ship, you can see you ever see picture, it's got a dome sticking down, the radar ships, the
Okay.
lead ships. So he starts strafing me. I look at him, wave my hands at him and everything, he's coming right at me. And I said, oh my Lord, what am I going to do? What we should do if you're far enough on the ground, you have to pull the cords on one side or the other and it collapses the chute right away.
Mm-hmm.
And you free fall. Then just let it go and you get away from but before you hit the ground. So I chose to play it dead. So I waited till he went around and looked around and he was looking further at me and I see the guns going off. So I slumped down, put my hands along my side, my head down on my chest, and he circled me 2 or 3 times and flew off. But then I heard popping and look on the ground, you could see it all looked like 100 people running around shooting at us. And none of their bullets hit. I hear the bullets, but none of them hit. Maybe 2 or 3 went through the parachute. And I cut that piece out. I'll take it home, but somebody on the ship coming home, they took it on me. But we're dropping down and I look down, there's a sharp peaked house coming right for me. And so I moved over a little bit with a sharp line and dropped down alongside of a house. And there's a little cavity in the ground, like some kind of excavation. It was just a small, I would say maybe 3 feet deep or so. And I landed right in there and of course cut the wind and everything, so my chute collapsed there, didn't have to be dragged or anything. And we're all taught how to say, Nestralice Americanets. In Russian means do not shoot, I am American. So see the emblem on their hats and everything that they were Russians. So you start hollering Nestralice Americanets. And my mother and father come from Krakow, Poland back in 1911, so as we were growing up we had to learn Polish because that's the only way they spoke.
Mm-hmm.
So I knew not Polish, so I said, yeah, proszę, Nestralice, jest Amerikańcy. I beg you, do not shoot. I am an American. And I said, ja mam papiery. It means I have some papers. I said, now pomału, easy. Now reached in and we had these pamphlets they give us. They're small one, they fold it, take them out, you open them up, it's a big poster.
Mm-hmm.
And a picture of Stalin and a picture of Roosevelt on it. And underneath them says comrades. And then I had a lot of Russian writing underneath it, saying that we're American and all that. So I heard a couple saying Americanets. And then a big black Cadillac looked like limo along the car come along and had 3 officers in it. I could see they were high-ranking officers, and they were told we're Americans. So he reached down, took my hand, pulled me up out of there. So that's when the first time I sighed a deep sigh of relief. And they found John Wallace almost immediately to him. So I told him the guys that are falling out of the sky are all Americans. So he sent word out to go around and make sure that they're all right. And the ones that are strafing Chapman, he collapsed his chute and fell free fall and then opened it up again. And when he hit the ground, he put him in a truck, and some Russian on a horse come up to him with a pistol, put it to his head and pulled the trigger 3 times, but the gun wouldn't go off. And then the truck pulled away, and the guy was there working on his pistol, and he finally fixed it, but the truck was too far away, so he didn't chase it.
Hmm.
And so Wallace and I and Twyford, they brought us to this building, and they had some interrogators there. And they asked me, I told them, I says, I'm Polish. And they brought a woman over, and I was an interpreter, but I couldn't understand her, she couldn't understand me. And I brought in a fellow by the name of Walter. big gangling guy, and I said, geez, this type of guy, you see him, you like him. And we spoke to each other just like talking to my mother or father. So he told the Russians he knows what he's saying. So they asked him, through the interpreter, what were we bombing? Of course, generally you don't give any information to enemies except the name, serial number.
Mm-hmm.
But in this case, the paper is going to be blasted with the, I think it was 2,000 planes hit Berlin that day. It was a all-out effort. And I told him we bombed Berlin. And he said, good, good. He says, how many planes? And then again, I knew the newspapers give with the amount of planes that go. So I said, 2,000. Oh, they were pleased as that, you know. He said, how come you didn't shoot us down when the Russians were strafing you? Well, I didn't tell them all our guns were knocked out. We couldn't shoot any of the guns, otherwise we'd have knocked them out. And I said, well, we knew you were Russians, we didn't want to shoot back. Just let it lie a little bit.
Mm-hmm.
And then they brought out a bottle of some kind of white liquor. He says, have a drink. I said, yeah, I need one. So they give me a little shot, and some woman there said, gee, Dave Buddy, to get some water in it. So the Russian said, nah, he can drink it right back in the boy, yeah, boy, strong. Went down, I felt better after I warmed up. What's the name? There's another guy, the waist cutter went down to his knees almost. But they put it in the room, put us up. And next day they said we got the rest of the crew there together. And there's 2 more missing, but we're going to meet them at the end of that day. They said we're going to bury the navigator. They found him, and they found my log. I was hoping to give it to me, but it was a little partially burnt, but it was, you can read it. And they said we're going to pick you up so-and-so time. So there's 2 trucks on one. There's these flat-bottom trucks. They had green cloth or something over the bottom, underneath on the truck, and had a casket on front. And there's 2 Russians in the front, 2 in the back, with rifles riding with it. And the other truck had, I think, 3 benches, and we were sat on that, rode backwards, and they had one with the Russians on it, and went up to a cemetery in Landsberg, and they had a ceremony there. They said something in Russian. They asked me through my interpreter if one of us wanted to say something. So I told my chaplain they wanted to know if anybody wanted to say the last 2 words. If they didn't, I would have. Chaplain said, yeah, I would. So he gave a nice talk about being a good navigator. And he was just married for 1 month. He married an English girl. And about his mother, and that he was a wonderful man, not only a great navigator, and ended up, and they had a great big tombstone on there. They come see me what they want on it. I put Harold P. Van Trest, born, I give him the date, and killed in action, CIA, March 18th, 1945, bombing mission Berlin. And they had that all inscribed overnight, they had that all on there. That's a big stone, stood up there at least 4 or 5 feet high. So I asked the girl taking photographs of everything if she would send me or give me a photograph. She said she'll try to get it, but I never got it.
Mm-hmm.
So it took us to we stayed there in Landsberg for a couple of days. Give us a couple of planks to live on, and 2x8s. Put a 2x8 bait together and just pitched them a little bit so I have one be straight. And they gave us some hay to put on there, and we wrapped a parachute around it. Then the remainder of the parachute we wrapped around ourselves the way we slept. And then we went to Poltava, or rather to what was the name of the place after that? It was a must. Yeah, I think it was a must, yes. And then from there, we were taken to Lublin, Poland.
Mm-hmm.
And that was a pretty good sized city. And Russians come in and told us 9 o'clock there's a curfew. Nobody on the streets. So he says, you'll listen tonight. You'll hear the Russian holler stool, which means halt. And you hear a shot. The next day, look out your window, you can see a funeral come by. He says, we're not fooling. So we said, okay. So Chappie and I walking around, he ran to a nice English pub, Jesus, nice clean place, run by a husband and his wife, and they had a young daughter, about 18, beautiful girl, and she's kind of receptionist. She's met everybody at the door, and went in and had a few vodkas. So next night we went down again. This time we overstayed. It was 10 o'clock before we come out. I said, oh boy, I said, Chapman, this is going to be Lulu. So we're walking up the street because he was a little bit pie-eyed and kind of leaning on each other. And we heard this son were kind of a Russian holler stool. And Chapman holler stool your butt. He didn't say butt, he used the other word. And I expected, I just waited to feel the bullet go to my chest. I just wondered how I was going to feel. The two Russians come up, it says crazy Amerikansky, and they helped us up to the hotel. So every night they'd meet us down there, they knew we were coming out. Escort us back. But walking along the street there one time, going back to the hotel, some Polish guy had a GI watch. They gave everybody the same kind of watch, like pilot, co-pilot, Bombadier, navigator. And out of each briefing we get, they hack the watches, everything the exact time. So I had a watch, and if you lose it, it costs you $15 to get a new one. And some guy says, I want to buy the watch in Polish. So I says, how much you give me? He says, 25,000 zloty. I say, Chappie, some guy here wants to buy my watch. How much you giving you? 25 something, I said. Tell him you want 50. I says, no, he's the pilot. And I said, I gotta be 50,000. He said, give me 40. I said, it's a deal. So I don't know what it was. I stuffed my pocket with rolls of money. When I get back to our base, I asked a guy in over in personnel to find out how much I was worth. He says, we brought that money home, it's been $750. But back then, it bought a brand new Chevy.
Wow.
So anyway, we decided to go down to the pub the next day, find out how much the money's worth. I figured it cost a few $100 at least for a drink. So we ordered 2 vodkas and 2 beer chasers. And there's some Polish guy crying there, so we got him a drink too. So for 3 good shots of vodka and 3 nice thin glasses of beer, it cost 3 zloty. And here I got 40,000 of them. Well, going home, I said, Chappie, you're going to be the drunkest guys ever lived here. I went to church next Palm Sunday, I went to church. And over in Poland, they have what they call continuous mass. Starts at 12 midnight, Sunday morning, it goes to 12 midnight, Sunday night. And there's no Saturday masses in. So anytime you walk into the church, whatever part of the mass is going on, when that part comes up again, you walk out. So people going in and out all the time.
Mm-hmm.
And it was full. I went in. I don't know if any other of my members are Catholic or not, but I took I think $20,000 of those bills there, and had some kind of a bearded priest come in. a nice big beard on him, and he's slowly passing down. You can see people dropping one bill or some coins in it. Comes to me, I chucked 20,000 of them in there. He put his hand about 3 times to me and took off, and never saw him again. And when I stepped out of church that day, two guys come up to me, and one talked English pretty well, very well. And he said, I said, where did you learn English? He says he's a professor at the Lublin University. And he said, geez, I'd like to talk with you sometime. I said, well, I speak Polish, so a friend could talk a little bit. I said, I could talk a little Polish. I said, so we talked in Polish, and the other guy happier than heck. So he invited me to come down to his house next day for dinner. And I says, sure. I said, I'll find out. He told me how to get there. It wasn't too far from the hotel we were living in. And I asked to send a guy to take care of us. I asked him for some food, because I'm having dinner with this Polish family, I says, and I said, I'd sure like to get some food so I could give them, because food is scarce to them. I said, that's why we don't need their supplies. So he gave me a lot of K rations. Give me a chicken that was all still froze, and cans of different vegetables. So I went down and gave him all. I thought you'd think I'd give him $1 million. So we had a nice visit. He asked me if I would get a letter for him and smuggle it back to the country. I say smuggle because the Russians wouldn't let me take it out. Matter of fact, while I'm walking the streets of Lublin, I must have got about 8 letters. People begged me to send them to their relatives in the States. So I took them all. And a couple of incidents happened while we were in that hotel. The hotel was just a bombed out half building. And we had a nice woman come in every day to straighten our beds, which are, like I said, it was 2 planks with hay on it. So straighten up the hay, pick up the hay, and fold a parachute on them. So eventually I told her, I says, I cut off a little piece of the shroud lines, and I pulled all these threads out of it. They're very, very fine thread, just like you sew clothes with. And I said, you can't break it. And I said, make good for sewing. I said, your teeth is a parachute too. She says, okay, when I come in, he says, she brought me in some kind of a thing to cover myself that night. And she took and hid everything. She said, the Russians seemed to take her from her. I hope she finally got it out of there. And another time we were in the room, and in comes 3 Russians. You can see they're a little bit looped. And I guess they wanted to fight. So they come up to me and says, me boxer. I said, me football player. Because he went to Mexico, but then he went over to Chapman. I looked at Chapman, he was an old Southern boy. And I could see he's not going to take it. So I told our Cusco to him, get ready. So he hit Chapman on the chest, and Chapman hauled out and built him one, and I belted one, and somebody else had grabbed the other one. So we were fighting there, and see, somebody fired a pistol, and there was some big shots coming in, big officers, high ranking. And one had fired a shot up through the...
Okay.
So we all stopped, and the shot went off, and my interpreter come in. They asked the guy to ask me what happened. I told him, rest in, relaxing here. I said, they bust in, they wanted to fight. Boy, they threw him out of the place. I don't mean pushed him out, they threw him out.
Yeah.
And he gave me a Russian pistol. He said, next time anybody come in and bother you, don't talk to them, don't answer them, don't ask them questions, you shoot them. And he said, don't drag them out the hallway, throw them out the window, we'll pick them up. So they left, and I took the bullets out, took the gun around, I said, don't fool around, boys. But the next day they come, took the pistol away from me. And so it's a lot of fun. I wanted to go to Krakow, but no way of transporting me up there, because I knew I had relatives all over the area. So we finally flew us from there to Poltava, up in the Ukraine, over in Russia. and trying to take off. I was on a grass field, just a meadow,
Mm-hmm.
and they had a Jeep loaded on there already. And all of us went on. I sat in the seat behind the steering wheel. They started going down the grass, and all of a sudden they hit a hole and swung the plane around. And they pulled it out, and tried it again, and did the same thing, and it's, holy cow. So finally they took us out, and put us in another plane, and sent it down a few miles away. They had a cement runway, or a hard-top runway, and they would usually have these heavy screens over the thing. And when we got there, they loaded us on the plane and flew us to Poltava then. And we were left more, we weren't prisoners, we were kept in confinement
Mm-hmm.
by the Russians, you know. We had quite a bit of liberty. And whenever we pick up a Russian girl to take her to her house and talk with them, they would pick up the girl next day, the KGB is it, and they would question her, tell her that we're spies. But none of them believed it. And one time they come in, they said, we can't ask you, officer, to do it. It's against the rules of the
Geneva Convention.
Naval Convention. They said, we want you to list them in, they gotta work today. I said, doing what? He said, they gotta shovel some ashes on the truck. And I said, well, I'll go with them. You're an officer. I want to go with my men. So he says, okay. So I went with him. I took a shovel, I helped him shovel, fill up a big truck. He had two trucks to load up. So they're going down with the first load. I said, can I go with you? He said, sure. So I jumped in there, we dumped it in, it was into a prison. And they dumped in there, and I went in where all the prisoners were. I'd never seen things so sad in my life. See one little guy there, nothing but bones sticking out of his face. You could count his ribs so easy, and his face was nothing but that bone sticking out. His eyes looking at me, here I'm fat as a hog and smoking a cigarette. So I see him looking at me, I took a cigarette, walked towards him, the rest of them, no. I said, what the hell are you? I said, you're not going to shoot me. And I put in his lips and see some of the others look around slow. So I had about 12 cigarettes left. I broke them in two, lit up the 24 of them, and give everybody a half a cigarette.
Mm-hmm.
And there's no filter, so you can smoke either end. We finally found a plane there over in Poltava that was good shape, except the landing gear was pretty badly mangled. We found another landing gear on one of the other planes there that was pretty good shape, and with Russian help we jacked the plane up and we got the thing off and put the other one on and worked on the engines and did whatever we knew about it. Never had no experience. And it says, okay, you'll be ready to go. He said, we're going to let you test run it first. And what happened a year or so before that, on what they call a shuttle mission, plane take off England, bomb Germany, land in Poland and over to Russia. And the next day take off, and loaded with bombs again, hit southern part of Germany, land in Italy. And the third day fly from Italy, bomb Germany again, and landed back to their base. So they call it a shuttle run, 3 runs, 3 missions in 3 days again. So they had 75 of these planes come in, and the Germans, instead of attacking them, they would follow them way back. After they landed, left the planes, they lined them up in 2 rows, they came in, they demolished all the planes, never took off again. So that's where we got our landing gear and stuff.
Hmm.
So they put, each plane got a small generator on it, because you can't have no electricity in the plane until at least one engine's going. So they start them up to give us power, start checking our position where we're flying. And when we got that all done, he said they took all 75 auxiliary engine, they call it, instead of And they put them all in the Bombay, 75 of them. And they said, we got 16 more men we want you to haul out of here. So it's 8 of us left. And so that'd be 24 men
Mm-hmm.
and all that. And so we went out to test op it. Chapman, Wallace, 2 pilots, and myself as an acting engineer. So now between the pilot and co-pilot, and it was one of these steel mat runways. You could hear that rippling noise as you're flying over it. And usually you shouldn't get over 100 some odd miles, 115 miles, 110 miles before you like to take the plane off. And so I leaned, they can't watch the speedometer, so I leaned, both their heads are close by me and holler, okay, doing 60, and I 65 and do by 5, but when I got around 80, boy, it didn't climb very high. 84, 85, oh boy, I look up, point of no return, gone too far. So when I got up around 88, 89, shot me pull on back on the planes because we're going to crash. And the plane took off and he quickly folded his landing gear, and they worked, thank God, and it went down just before it hit the ground. She picked up enough speed, she kept going. So we landed right away. And they gave us heck, they thought we were just taxiing down the runway to turn off, and here we're going full speed. So we said, got to do some more work on them engines. And we get ready, he said, we'll take off, but we got to take all them auxiliary engines out of the Bombay, and the other men won't be able to take with us, 16 of them. They've got to wait for somebody else to come in. So they picked the plane up, and they said, okay, take off this time, don't come back. So all the guys assembled there, and so something told me that when we get on that plane, we're going to be searched. So I heard as soon as I got to my navigating position up there on flight deck, I opened a big, huge fuse box. It was about that wide, about that high, all the fuses in there. And I opened it up, it had one screw on, 2 screws on top and 1 on the bottom. So I took the bottom one off and loosened up the other and moved it up and put the letters in it and put the screw back in it quickly. And went about position when everybody was there, then they come on, everybody out. And we had to go all out of the plane. It took about 4 men. They went in and searched that plane from one end to the other.
Mm-hmm.
So I kind of held my breath, and I said, all right, get on, close that door, don't come back. And it says you're going to go to Barry, Italy. I got orders going to Barry there. And they give us enough what the elevation, or to fly at 10,000 feet, and give us a wind. Forgot how many knots it was and the direction the wind's coming in. Because as like anybody flying airplane, you got a heading here, or wind's coming here, you want to go there.
Mm-hmm.
Well, you better go this way, so the wind will blow you on your right track. And so I told him, I said, 1 minute. I said, when I go up in the air at 10,000 feet, I'm going to take 3 different headings. So it'll only be a minute or so on, about a minute or so on each one. He said, what do you want to do that for? I said, I want to get my own wind and the knots. He said, we give you wind. I said, that's all right. I want to get my own. So I said, all right. So I took a heading so-and-so and told Chapman take another 30, 40 feet the other way, and degrees, and then a third way. Each time I marked our heading and how much drift we're making. And I put all this on an E6B computer. We carried a small computer.
Mm-hmm.
And then set them all on there. I could turn them dials around. I could show you exactly what degree the wind's coming from and the exact knots up to the half a knot. So I think it was 5 knots. 5 knots of an hour. Anyway, I put the equipment on there. Then I took the wind, put it back on the E6B after I erased it, and put my heading on there, applied the wind, and it showed me what, I put the course on there, the exact course I want to make. Put the heading on, and it showed me how much correction to make into the wind. So I put that all down and we took off. And they told us, if you get 1 mile off course, we gotta shoot you down. We went down across Yugoslavia, some of them countries over the mountains. First when we come to over the top of a mountain, look down, there's a beautiful, this blue body of water you ever seen. You couldn't see the other side. So I remember the co-pilot said, Marty, what's that blue water? So again I told him, I said, if that's not the Mediterranean Sea, I don't know what country we're in. So we flew across it, and after we got well across the Mediterranean, still couldn't see land yet. He says, what's our ETA and our course? I said, the course looked pretty good. I said, but I've been taking a drift off the top of the white caps on the Mediterranean. I could see what drifting a little bit more than we did before. So I give I believe a 1 degree correction and check my ETA. I says, given the time we should be there. So we came into Barry, we came in right over the runway, and our time was off by half a minute. So it was a perfect hit, you know.
Mm-hmm.
So we landed. They gave us hell for coming in with that plane. We had no parachutes, nobody had a parachute. And they told us to get out of the plane, and they told somebody, give somebody orders to tow that out to the junkyard and junk the plane. Because it just, everything was beat up. But it made it.
Now, did the war end?
No, not yet.
Okay.
So they took us up to Naples, and they deloused us. They put us naked into a shower and a strong stream of water, and they deloused all of us, hair, head, ears, everything. Any crevice in your body was, make sure, because there was a lot of louse. We were loused up from Russia. And they give us a clean bit, and they put some kind of a powder on us and rub it on underneath our armpits, stuff like that. And our clothes, before we went in the shower, we had to take all our clothes off, and shoes and stockings, put them in this rubberized bag, and then they sealed it off so no air could come out or in. And inside of it, you feel there's a little tube, hard metal cylinder, and he says, put that on the ground, put your heel on it, and that's before we went in the shower and we had our shoes on yet. Stomp on it, and it opens up and it puts this poisonous stuff or whatever it is to deloused all our clothes. Everything was clean, and then we get in the shower. Then we put our clothes back in, and did a good job. So Naples, they gave us a couple of days there. Went into town. Chappie and I got a little bit looped. We're so happy to be back in the American hands. And we're supposed to take off at 7 o'clock in the morning, head for the base. And boy, I caught a ride on the truck. It was already daylight. We got back to base, it was after 8 o'clock, and we went in the tent. I said, holy cats, everybody gone, look at that. I said, I'm gonna get burnt here. But there's a guy cleaning up the tent. I says, geez, I said, what time did they leave? He said, they haven't left yet. You're the first one back from the town. So I felt better. So the next night they kept us on the base, and the second night we took off, the second morning. And we flew over as a stopover at Paris for one night. And then we went back to the base, and it was at supper time. And of course we weren't dressed in classic uniforms. And we went up into the hallway, and they lined up to go into the mess hall outside, and the line goes in to the door and pick up your plate, and they give you the thing on this metal plate. So we're walking up, everybody turned around looking at us, and see, a lot of things, they're young kids, correct? They just must have got out of school or something. I've never seen none of the old timers, they're all gone. There's about 8 weeks gone by.
Wow.
And as we turned to go into the mess hall, we could see inside the mess hall, there's a long table in the front, has the CO, girl shower, and all the brass from the base, all on them long tables, and they're waited on, which the rest of us have to go through the line. And the minute I walked through, I noticed this Captain Novak look up, and he said something to Colonel Shower, and Colonel Shower jumped up and come running over to us because they were notified we were dead. And Jesus led us back to the table, and we were waited on that night. And I asked Captain Novak, he said, who talked Polish? I said, I did. Well, he said, so he was Polish too. So I said, where are her clothes and everything? He says, you know, I think they're up in the post office. He says, I hope they haven't sent them out yet. So I said, okay, so we had supper. I said, where are we sleeping tonight? He said, in the hospital. So I said, all right. So I got out of there quick as I could. And Chappie said, where are you going, Marty? I said, I'm going to see if I can get up to that post office. So I took a bicycle, I don't know what belonged to him. Used to be a lot of bikes taken, but they were turned up at the end of the month. You'd have 300 bikes people had to clean. So I took somebody's bike and I rode out because the post office was on the outskirts of the base. And knocked on the door, had a screen wire mesh in front of the door and the glass, and way in the back I could see one guy working. And he punched his watch. He said, no, I kept banging, trying to come up on the door. Sir, he said, we're closed. No, I just want to ask you a question. Do you have any clothes, boxes of clothes that are going to be shipped out here yet? He said, I gave you the names. He said, yeah, we got 10 of boxes out there. I said, what's the names on them? So he went back, come back. He said, there's a Chapman, there's a Twyford, and he named 3, 4. I said, he said, don't ship them, please don't ship them clothes out. Ship Van Trest and Fuller. George Fuller and Harold Van Trest, shipped them home, but the rest of them, I said, we're all back on the base. Oh, he said, boy, am I glad you came here, because in the morning they're going out. So I still got the board where the address was on them, and there was marked killed in action, and they're going to be mailed to my mother.
Oh, geez.
So, geez, because I haven't been able to get in contact with her. So I did send her some letters from Italy and England, and she finally got 2 of them. And the rest of the letters I get to our guy that used to audit all the mail going out, and they checked the Polish letters and they said, no, they're all right. So we mailed them out. And well, I went to town that night. I knew my buddy would be wearing like hell up on me. He was over in the corner of the bar and crying his head off. He was saying, so why didn't that son of a gun tell me he's going to go and do that? I'd gone with him. And I hauled out and built on. He jumped up and Jesus, he cried. So we greeted each other, and that was the last time we seen him, because we were supposed to head out. The bombing, they wouldn't form any more crews because the front lines were moving so fast. They did very little bombing after that. And so I asked to go back by boat, because I said I flew over and I want to never be able to go across the ocean on any kind of a ship. So I got on the ship, I think it was the USS Frederickson, and we did see her way home. But she's sick for about 3 days. I lay on my couch and never moved. And we slept 8 above each other, on like little cots. I think it was 8 above each other, one on top of the other. And out on the very bottom, we only had about that much room. So I come back, but I put all our clothes down in the hold. And somebody during the trip across opened all of them and took whatever they wanted. That's why I lost a lot of the stuff. And come home and landed in Boston. And then they gave us furlough papers to go home for a month. So I got home and then I went back to Langley Field, and there was a sergeant interviewing all of us, getting information from us. So he said, where do you want to go? You can be based any place you want. I said, no, he says, I got a little more frightening left in me. I'd like to go South Pacific. So he says, no, you don't have to go down there. he says, well, I want to go there. He says, wait a minute, you're missing for over a month, for over 6 weeks. Yeah, I said, I'm missing action 7 to 8 weeks. He said, you can't go. He said, you got to go home for 2 months. And he says, 1 month at home or 1 month in a recuperation center. You go to Long Beach, Atlantic City, of course there's no casinos there then, or Lake Placid, New York, for a week. Do anything you want, say anything you want, what you want, dress what the way you want. He says just 1 month of recuperation, then you come back, get reassigned. I said, no, I said, skip that. I said, I want to go to South Pacific. He says, you're crazy, you better take your vacation. So he said, okay. So they assigned me to a group in Boca Raton on B-29s. Trained there for combat in South Pacific. And I was going down, I was a couple days ahead of schedule, so I stopped in Atlanta, Georgia. Because the guy stopped next to me during the pre-flight. He was a kid that was killed in service, and Divine, I think his name was. Him and I used to talk many a time, you know, laying in our bunks. And I thought I'd find his folks and go over and visit with them, tell them about their son. And I said, maybe too, I'd get a good supper out of it. So I looked at I bought a quart of whiskey first, so $2.49. I put up my room, I went downstairs, I was going to go have dinner, supper, and thought I'd better make the phone calls first. So I went in the phone book, I thought it'd be 2, 3, but there's a couple of pages of divines. I said, forget it. My God, it must have been 50 of them. So I went down to order a steak dinner, and I put the fork in. I know it's going in. There's a package store across the street, liquor store. And I was just ready to cut the steak, and Harry Truman come on the air. He says, it's announced that the war in Japan is officially over. We are now at war with no one. So, geez, I didn't even cut the steak. I went across the road and bought 8 more quarts of whiskey, took them up my room. And 10 minutes after it became known, 15 minutes, liquor went up to 20 bottles a quart. I got it for $2.49. So I went outside to see a Marine. I said, come out with me. So we hugged each other, and I says, well, we did it. I says, listen, this hotel room is going to be open, and I got all the liquor in the world. I says, you come up here and take a drink anytime you want. He said, okay, come with me though, sir. So I never thought I'd talk to an officer, but I said, hey, we're human just like you. So he took me into the pool room, and there's quite a few rows of tables. He says, it's the 3rd table, okay? Turn up the 3rd row rather, and the 3rd table up. Look on the upper left leg. Reach down there, you see a bottle of booze. Come in here, take a drink anytime you want. So then I met some sailors. I took them up. Some guys, I wasn't doing that much drinking, but they were, geez. But next day they're really celebrating there. And I got tangled up with 5 other people and celebrating, dancing, and eating all that. So I was a day late coming down to my base in Boca Raton. So the little sergeant said, sir, you're a day late. We got to mark you AWOL. I said, oh, come on, the war is over. I said, geez, I did my duty. And I pleaded with him, you know. And then I made up a story. I said, geez, my car broke down up in Fort Lauderdale. My wife's there, my 2 kids. I said, you're going to give me AWOL. He said, I'm sorry, sir, that's what the rules say. And then the Master Sergeant come walking in. I look across his chest, he got his name. A couple of Sasaki or something like that. So he said, what's going on here? So I told him in Polish. I said, I got drunk as hell. I'm day late coming down. I said, from my arrival. I said, he wants to mark me AWOL. He said, right in there, he said, come in here 2 days ago. I said, okay, sorry. So he signed me in 2 days earlier. So I hung around for a while and asked for a discharge and I come home.
Now, were you married?
No.
Okay.
No. the girl there I was gonna marry, have to get married several times, but she kept putting me off.
Okay, zoom in on that. I think we're so close, I'm having a problem zooming in. Let's see, hold that there. Let me just switch positions here. Maybe I can get a better shot. Let's see, try something here. This isn't working for some reason. Oh, here we go. I think that's... Okay. All right, got it. Very attractive woman.
Yes,
Okay, got it.
we were married October 17, 1948. And I lost her in 1952 from cancer.
Oh, sorry to hear that.
But this is a copy of the work I do, a radar picture of it, or rather a picture of the radar set. The round lines are telling you that you set them at different distances. I think this one's set at about 20 miles apart. And like here you see the town, like, and here's a town here. But this is a heavily wooded area.
Okay.
And you could tell what that is. And I don't know if she brought some other pictures out here.
Oh, can you hold these up too?
Okay, I'll give you this one first.
Okay.
This is a picture of Berlin. And a point, you can see our B-24 falling down into Berlin.
Oh, wait a minute, I'm getting...
I could pull a pencil out there, it'd be better.
Well, for some reason it's starting to get blurry as I come in close with it. Hold on. Yeah, that's about as close as I can get without it getting really blurry. Okay. And that's it over Berlin?
Yeah, this is our plane going down, burning.
Oh.
And it's just in front of my finger there in the lower corner.
See.
And that's the plane that we went down and finally
Okay.
pulled out of the dive. And there's a picture
Try.
of me when I was.
Okay, when was that taken?
This was taken in 1944.
44? Okay. Got it.
And this is a group that we were taken in Poltava. It shows the starting on the upper left, Chapman, Yakusko, Wallace, Twyford, and I'm on the bottom row myself, Anderson, and Austin.
I am losing it here. Hold on, let me just turn this off and try. Okay, I think that's about as clear as we're going to get it. Okay.
I do pictures. I don't know if you want pictures of all these or not. Another picture, you don't want another picture of this.
Oh yeah, that's a good shot. And that was in cadet school?
Yeah, I was air cadet then.
Okay, got it.
And this is
And that's your
a picture
crew.
of my crew. Most of them.
Okay. Can you name them for me?
All right, starting up upper left. Myself,
Uh,
Chapman.
Can you tilt that towards me a little because I'm getting glare. Okay, that looks pretty good.
All right, upper left is myself, pilot Chapman, DR navigator Ventress, co-pilot Wallace, lower left Anderson, radio operator, and George Fuller, the engineer. George Fuller and Ventress are the two that were killed that time.
Yeah. Okay.
You could take these with you.
Okay. Now, how many of your crew are still living? Do you know?
I could never find Wallace. He sent me a letter in 1947.
Mm-hmm.
He was taking engineering up in college, and he let me know him and his wife Betty are good, and that I go to college too. And I wrote him a letter back, and then we kind of let time slip by a little bit, and I even put a inquiry in American Legion magazine, the VFW magazine, if anybody knows his whereabouts. I landed in St. Louis where I last knew he lived. One time heading out to Las Vegas, and we had about a 3-hour layover, and I called up his home and said no, the people that lived there then never remembered him. And my son got how many Wallaces around the area? I think there was 10. So I called 3, but none of them were there. Then next night I called 3 more, so I gave it up.
No.
And I do not know where he was. And I even called the 2nd Air Division Association, which I belonged to, and they tried to put a finder on him, they couldn't. But all the rest of the men are gone. Chapman was the last one. No, the wife called me from Florida. They lived there. It says, Pop wanted me, if something ever happened to me, let me know. I said, Bob passed away, he says so. And then I used to call Chapman several times.
Okay, hold right there. I'm going to put another tape in. Okay, you were saying?
Where was I?
You were talking about Chapman?
Yeah, we talked to each other quite a bit. I know one time first time I sent him a Christmas card, he sent one back. He said, please don't ever, if you ever come down and see me, don't talk to my wife about what we did in the service, which he liked to drink. But he lived in Troy, Alabama, and we were going to make plans to go down, and he became quite wealthy. He had a crew of men out, carpentry work, anything, and they worked the whole Alabama and even part of Florida, doing construction or anything, you want excavating, whatever. And he owned a local Johnson franchise, and he owned a big share of the local bank. He had a loan company and a motel. So even Howard Johnson, he had so he said, if you ever come down, I don't want you to pay any meals and don't pay about where you're staying, he says. And he said, you come here, see me, he said, I got a place and I'm looking forward to seeing you, but a couple times something happened and he wasn't feeling good, or I wasn't feeling good or something, and call him up. Every Christmas Day I'd call him up. I come here after 12 noon, call him up, have a talk. So the last one I called just a few years ago, and well, it can't be over, I know it isn't 5 years ago. I said, his wife answered, of course down there they don't use your first name, just go by your last name. So she said, who is this? I said, that Polish Yankee from upstate New York. Oh, Bezon. She said, just a minute, I'll see if Bill can get on the phone. So I said, sounds like he's not good. So he come on, he said, Martin, he said, you won't know what this means to me when you call. He says, I think it bothered him what happened that time I was interviewed and was chewed out. And I think it might have bothered him quite a bit later life. But he says, I said, what's the matter with you, Bill? He said, I just had open heart surgery and I'm recuperating. And then he had something wrong with his leg. So I said, gee, Bill, I says, we got to get together at least once. He said, boy, he says, we got to. So I got worried about him, and it was, the 25th, about the 29th, I called up again. I says, I just want to know, how's Bill doing? He says, I'm sorry to tell you, he died last night.
Oh my God.
So then Twyford died, that was the last of them. Anderson was on the police force, he died from a heart attack. Their Cusco was out in California laying rugs and he died. So they're all gone.
Okay.
And I say here, so I don't know, you could look through these books and if you want to find something that might interest you.
Did you join any veterans organizations?
Yeah,
Like,
I've been a member of the Knights of Columbus 57 years.
mm-hmm.
And I've been a member of the Veterans of Foreign Wars, a life member of both KC and Veterans of Foreign Wars. From 46 on to that 46, 60, 66, that'd be 70 years, or rather 67 years.
Mm-hmm.
And a member of the American Legion, lifelong member of the American Legion also. So, picture here, you don't know what to show you.
How do you think your time in the service changed or affected your life? Let me ask you this first. Once you were discharged, did you make use of the GI Bill at all?
No, I didn't take the $20 a week for a year, was it?
Oh yeah, the 5220 club?
5220. I wanted to go to college because I wanted to always be a math teacher. That's the guy that was, I think that's the guy that was killed then. No, not that.
Oh, that's, no.
Several of the guys were being killed though.
And, well, did you use the GI Bill for a mortgage or anything? No. And what type of work did you do?
I was 46. I went up to Alaska to work a year surveying for the U.S. Geological Survey.
Uh-huh.
Two of us. And we had to go up in the hills. Average about 22, 23 miles a walk in a day. While we were, at the times we spent up in the mountains, I would drop from 215 to 175 pounds. And but they give us all the cave rations and the other rations we need.
Mm-hmm.
So they contain my pack of cigarettes or two in each one. So it didn't cost too much to live. And the government gave us $15 a day to live on anyway, plus our wages. And I came back in the end of 46, went back to Republic Steel. And in between the strikes and all that, I worked construction here and everything. I never drew unemployment.
Uh-huh.
And I had 31 years credit with Republic Steel. But it wasn't actually actual time I spent on there, because our service time was counted as the year's work, and they called me back during the Korean War, and I had to go back again to serve. So I trained on B-29s, and then I became an instructor. And
now, what rank were you when you were discharged?
well, when I was discharged the first time, I was supposed to hold a captain, because when the Sydney was a staff officer for the radar operators, he got his mission and he left. And I never thought I'd get it because there's some, several of the older men, but I became a staff officer of the radar men.
Mm-hmm.
And I know they grumbled at me, but I put them through the paces every week. I said, by God, I want to get home. I want most of you to get home too. So, and that calls for captain rating. So that was put in eventually. And I had to just get approval of headquarters up around, I don't know, Doolittle had anything to do with it or what. And we got shot down. Of course, word come back, we were killed.
Mm-hmm.
So they put all that off. And we got back to England, all promotions were frozen. So I got like a belated captain rating that they considered you would have made a captain, to appease me a little bit, but I know I never got it, so it's first lieutenant then.
And then when you were called up for Korea, were you promoted then?
Yeah, they should have been. Anybody taken out of reserves automatically gets promoted, and then again they froze it, they wouldn't do it. So then I took a job. I ended up, the last job was, they needed a man in radar, ration breakdown officer. And so they sent me there. And they had a master sergeant was there, permanent duty, and a little, supposed to be a clerk. The only three of us are permanent there, and then we get party of groups come in, 4 or 5 men, 3, 4, and we teach them what ration breakdown's about,
Mm-hmm.
and they move on to send new ones in. But we had to feed 9,000 troops. We had 8 main mess houses, 1 small one. And food is delivered 3 times a week. And every month we have a meeting with the colonel in charge of supplies and all that. And say now just this March, we would have a meeting this month, April, May, and we'll get the menu for June, 3 months from there. So we got 3 months to get the right food in there. And the menu's all printed out.
Now, whereabouts was this?
This is on every base, every outfit in the United States would get that.
Okay, so you stayed in the States. You
I
didn't.
was in Keaton, Mountain Home, Idaho then.
Mm-hmm.
And it's a pretty good town, a little town out in the desert. But we'd review the menu, breakfast, lunch, dinner. And if there's any changes to be made, you could change the meals, but they have a 3 months notice and they know what the heck to order to bring in there.
Mm-hmm.
So they have the meeting once every 3 months. I mean, meeting every month, pretty good, and discuss what's coming up 3 months from then. We had a what you called an office when I first went in there, but just a corner of the warehouse, and desk there, and pencil, pen, paper, and forms. So we used to do it all the figuring how much food to put out by longhand and pencil, and I knew math good, and the first sergeant was good too, because he said used to get some second lieutenants come in. He said they just didn't know what to do. So we had to run it very smooth. The one thing I had to do was take inventory every month of all the mess halls. If they had too much of what they're supposed to have, and have more than they're supposed to have a certain item, or to take it away if not, give them credit. When, for instance, I went in one mess hall, he had 4 tons of coffee, and all you're supposed to have on hand is, at the maximum is 1,000 pounds. So I took all that back, and oh my God, but at the end of the year, end of the month, we were about $62,000 ahead. I thought, gee, that's pretty good. You could feather my cap on saving that much money. And we're supposed to give out, we get the order from Washington for each month, $12, $.1236 or something like that. And, the dollar sign, and then they carry it 4 places. Because the number of rations, throughout the services, that amount of millions of dollars. So this is what we got to get receipt from the mess halls. They come in each month, ask us, tell us what they're going to feed, and this is what we'd issue to them. And like I say, Monday, Wednesday, and Friday we'd issue all of it, but had the what do you call them? Checked financial status and all that. Auditors came in the end of the month, and they saw that 60-some-odd thousand. What's this? I said, well, this is most of the inventory I took back. He says the government says you have to give these men $1 so-and-so a ration. He says, you've shorted them. If we come back here and see anything like this again, he says, you're out of a job. I said, geez, I thought I was doing something good. I said, I didn't realize it. That'll be fixed. So we used to give a bunch of the officers mess hall. Them guys are always short because they had to pay for their meals. And they come over all the time. I said, I'll give you I'll give you a whole hind quarter, but if you get one of the mess halls to sign for it, I said, it's got to be assigned to somebody. So one of the other mess halls, they're pretty well off shape, so they said, no, I'll give it to them. So they were charged with the meat. And the officers were happy, and they were happy. And so everything went good, but we're still saving money. We couldn't stop it no way. We did everything we could, but give out what's supposed to be given out. So Sergeant Payne and myself sat down one day. We talked it over, and we came up with an idea. So the next meeting, remember the meeting started out, Colonel Flavin in charge of it, opened up the thing and he says, okay, he says, well, I'll review the menu. So he's reviewing the menu, and one of the lieutenant, second lieutenant, mess hall officer, raised his hand. He says, sir, I could take oleo and I'll dress it up so that you or no one else will ever know the difference in butter. Remember the colonel got up, pointed the finger at him. You ever stick oleo in front of me, he says, you'll be off this base so quick. So I said, wow. So it got through the menu and all that. I raised my hand. He said, go ahead, Martin. I got to know Colonel Flavin real well. He says, go ahead. I says, well, I have a problem of having too much money left over. And I said, we tried different things, but I said, it doesn't work. And Harold Payne and myself came up with an idea. He said, what is it? I said, can you get KPs for Sunday night? Because Sunday night meals are bologna, salami, and dry sandwich, and a big patch of beans, and that's about all it is. And a lot of guys never come in the base for that. They stay in town, get drunk, get in trouble. So I said, one of the sergeants said, yeah, we got a lot of guys waiting to be punished. All right, I says, how about dropping the cold meal on Sunday nights and I have a hot steak dinner? Oh, geez, everybody picked up and said, can you do it? Yeah, I think that'll help me with my paperwork and my money to come out where it should be. I says, if you get the KPs, I said, well, geez, he says, try it. Boy, we did. Next Sunday it was all hot steaks, and Sunday after, 75% of the crime rate in Mountain Home cut down. And the guys all come back, took a shower and everything, took a nap, and Sunday night go in for a nice hot steak dinner. So, oh geez, everybody was happy. And we also came up, we used to get a car, say for a carload of milk, Carnation milk. It'd come in maybe 2 boxcar loads, and we'd have one forklift. He'd come up and have, they sent some help up. They load 40 cases onto a pallet and lift it up, come over, then they had to unload that, pile it up, and big stacks of it, and they're all square. And the regulations, there's supposed to be a fire lane all around, and in between those things had to be a certain length open. So we thought we'd cut down on the help if we could take and have a bunch of pallets made, and instead of making them square, put them in at an angle. The guy, forklift would come in at an angle and load it. Then if we had the pallets, by the time we get done loading that, the other one would be waiting for us to come over and set that right on top of that. And he says, it'll be done within a couple hours. We can unload two of them almost in 2 hours. And he says, and we measured the lanes and all that. We kind of do it often with a chalk mark, and we could do it, we wouldn't hurt the fire lane at all. So I said, we'll send you, I think it was 500 pallets, and we set up a big long row of them, and they come over and inspected it, and Jesus measured it, okayed it, and there's going to be, I don't know if they ever done it, said they're going to notify all the warehouses. So that went in that fact too. So, but they come to approach me, they said, we got a job out in the outskirts of where the main camp was, and it was where they, all the equipment on the base, anything that been, they claim it's shot, they can't use it no more, planes or anything. A lot of planes, big enough to be taken all apart.
Mm-hmm.
And salvage, but the parts that were salvageable, we would do it. And they said, the job's yours if you want it. You'll get your captaincy right away. I liked this crew I was working with. I liked the Van Tress, him and I became real tight friends. We fished and everything out there together. I said, now I'll finish up my few months I got left here. So I stayed there. I could have got my captaincy then. I wasn't in for the rank anyway, I was in to do a job.
So when did they discharge you?
Well, it was in 53, November of 53.
Mm-hmm. And then?
I got thinking about it, and of course I was married then, and the wife, I told the wife, I says, I ought to get back in the service. Why did I ever get out? I had, between the first day I went into service, World War II, and the last day I was discharged, and in between I was in the reserves. But if you recall like that, all your time counts as time served.
Mm-hmm.
All I needed is about another 9 more years, I could have got my pension. I would have been a young man yet. I wouldn't have been even 40. So if I stayed longer, it would have been better. Of course, at the time, pensions weren't that big, but now they're
Mm-hmm.
beautiful. Because I was getting paid as an infantry man $50 a week. They take out $8 for insurance and dry cleaning, laundry.
Mm-hmm.
So everybody got a $20 bill, 2 10s, 2 5s, and 2 1s.
And your wife didn't want you to stay in, or?
Yeah, she was willing to go back in. I wasn't married during the World War II,
Mm-hmm.
but as a cadet, we got $75 a month,
Mm-hmm.
and our insurance was paid for. So that was good, because I come out of the service, got a card from Pennsylvania, saying that they okayed, we could pick up our GI insurance if we wanted.
Mm-hmm.
So I said, well, we weren't getting much money then. I was lucky to make $4,000, $5,000 a year or something. But of course, it was good money back then. You were able to save that. So I told the wife, well, we ought to take $1,000 at least of it. She says, well, all right. And like I say, it cost peanuts. So I called up after about 2 or 3 years. I said, reinvest the dividends. And dividends are always tax-free, and the insurance refund that I'm gonna get after eventually, not the refund, but the amount of the insurance was I left in there, will be tax-free. And I told them I wanted them 20-year pay life. So back in when was it? 1962. Excuse me. 1962, they called me, sent me a letter not to send any more money in. Well, that $1,000 gone up to 8,000 something now, just to be reinvested.
Mm-hmm.
Buy more insurance, more insurance. And I put it down as burial. The kids know it's my burial fund. So I have no qualms about everything I've done.
Mm-hmm.
Enjoyed my life. I joined a comradeship. I formed a bunch of guys, all of them. Used to go up in the tower and watch the planes come in when I wasn't flying, and when all of a sudden they see one short, and they felt bad, you know, and you hate to even hear which crew it was.
Mm-hmm.
But Van Trest had a son born. He was married for a month, and Chapman and I tried to talk him out of it. Wait till the war is over now. But he married this girl he was wild about. So he died. I guess last time I talked to Twyford, he said he heard from Mrs. Van Trest that David, wife, and her son is coming over, so it'll be her grandchild. Well, then when he got shot down, we come home, there's a couple guys come over from some other base and wanted to talk to me and about Van. And the mother asked him to go see me because Van probably slept like next to me. So I gave him a whole bunch of pictures of Van and his wife and all that. So they took him with them. Yeah, so
Okay, well, thank you so much for your interview.
this thing that she'll make shows you number of planes lost that day, 2. It shows the crews. And down here, when our crew wasn't lost because we bailed out, but these 2 were lost. There's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 more guys were killed on that. It shows P-51 escort. That's the Berlin target. Target factory site. So she'll send you copies of all these.
All right. Okay, thank you again.
All right.